Okay, can you introduce yourself for the audience, please?
Yeah. So my name is Tad Retz. Tad with an A. A lot of people think it's Tad with an E, but so I'm 26 years old. I've been painting ever since high school, the end of high school. I started kind of like the senior year. My brother was kind of the one that got me into it. I knew I wanted to do something art related, but I wasn't sure what route to go on because I like doing everything, sculpture, ceramics, painting, drawing, everything. And so he was getting into the animation industry. And so he kind of we took some of the same online classes together, and he kind of steered me in the right path for what to do to get better at painting, how to like learn. And so yeah, I started painting digitally first, and eventually took that outside to get better color and value knowledge on location. And just to make my digital art better was my initial idea, or my initial plan. But I fell in love with painting outside and painting with real paint. At the end of the day, having a little stack of actual paintings was really, I don't know, really enjoyable to me. I've always liked being able to hold something that I create. So that felt right. And from that point on, I started painting a ton, traditionally in acrylic, gouache, oil. Um, and yeah, so that's kind of how I got started. And over the past few years, it's slowly become sustainable. I've been able to make an income with it. So that's my full-time job now.
Fabulous. And that must be a most amazing feeling to have that. And you're still relatively young to get to that stage. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm 45 now, and it took me, I mean, I've been professional for around 10 years or so, but it takes a long time, and it's the most exhilarating feeling sometimes when you wake up and you think, this is my job, doing what I enjoy doing. So looking at your style, and I'm going to ask you first of all that, I mean, you're multi-talented, so I'm looking at the art equipment that you also make as well.
Yeah.
When do you find the time to do that?
So I started doing that it's probably 4 years ago, around there. And that was kind of right before I was looking for another. I have like a few different avenues. I do some tutorials online with Gumroad and also my website, but and then the easels, and then painting, and there's other painting painting equipment along with the easels, and then workshops every once in a while during the year. I was trying to find I was trying to exhaust all the options to try to make it sustainable.
Yeah.
And so the easels was an idea that I came up with my dad, and because he's really good at woodworking. And so we slowly developed that, and while I was painting for galleries and stuff, and just trying to learn at least at the start. And so we kind of came up with that idea, kind of put it up there on the site just to see what would happen. That's kind of my mindset with everything. I'll just try this thing and see what happens. And so we did that, and it actually, and that's when they were originally made out of cigar boxes. We were just taking old cigar boxes and repurposing them basically. And it ended up having a really good, the response was really good. So we just kept making them, and eventually we couldn't find enough cigar boxes anymore. So we started building them completely from hand, or by hand, the box and everything. And so that has slowly evolved into like a whole nother business in a way, to the point where I can't spend my time doing that, because it's like a whole nother battle building those. So I I've kind of just handed that over to my dad. My dad just retired, and that's kind of his business now. And like it's still under my name on my website and everything, but I basically pay him to build them. So I can spend my time painting and teaching a little bit, but it's mostly painting. That's what I really want to do.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't want to lose any fingers or anything on the table side.
Absolutely. And so much of it about, it's very interesting you saying then that you have these sort of multiple plates spinning at once. And I'm very much the same. So I teach as well and do this podcast and do all of these different things. So you're always looking for that way to make it sustainable for what you want to do mostly, which is create paintings, but to have that backup in a sense, or that framework where you don't then wake up hungry and think, I've got to paint a painting today to sell. You know, it's sort of you afford yourself a little bit of that luxury in a sense, or security, that with your art you can create what you want to create rather than just for commercial purposes.
Yeah, it definitely frees me up. My personality and the way I was raised, I think it's helpful for me. I'm sure it's different for other people. I know there's other artists out there that have to dive in completely into it, sacrifice everything. Or there's people that need to have a full-time job and then do the art on the side to feel right in their head. Yeah. But for me, I knew I wanted to do the painting, but I wanted to kind of have these little things on the side where they would kind of balance each other out when, say, gallery sales are down. Kind of, I mean, we're almost still in it. Like at the beginning of the year, galleries are a little, they typically, at least in my case, seem to be a little slow on sales. People are thinking about the tax season and everything, not buying as much. So when that happens, I generally do all right with the easel sales. And if for some reason the easel sales are down, people are buying my tutorials on Gumroad. So they all kind of balance each other out throughout the year and really kind of free me up to just do purely what I feel like doing in the moment.
Yeah. Do you set yourself hours for, you know, going into the studio and doing certain things? Because it's a lot to manage in that, you know, time of day that you have available.
Would you say, what are my hours?
Do you kind of set yourself hours? Do you kind of say from the, you know, 10 a.m. or something, I'm going to be in the, or earlier, I'm going to be in the studio or whatever?
Yeah, definitely. I basically start painting or packing stuff up and shipping or whatever I need to do for that day. Yeah, like you said, right around 10. I'm not a morning person. I stay up super late and then I wake up, I don't know, not late, but I don't wake up early, and I take a little while to wake up. So I end up start feeling like working around 9 or 10, and then pretty much I paint or work on things that I need to work on, updating my website, stuff like that, running to the post office, until like mid-afternoon, 3 or 4-ish. And by that time, so my studio has a lot of windows, and the bad part is they all face south. So I get a lot of like, if the sun is out, especially in the late afternoon, I get like the really heavy sun coming in. So that's kind of forced me to work at certain times of the day are better than others. So by the late afternoon, if the sun is out, it'll come in and kind of mess up the lighting in here, even though I pull the blinds and turn on my LED lighting. So that is kind of basically why I work that way. I think it's kind of just evolved that way. And then I'll go take a break. I'll get out, go for a bike ride. I don't know, go skiing or something. Visit my parents, friends, whatever. Come back later in the night, and I'll try to a lot of times I'll try to get a couple more hours depending on what projects I'm working on. If I'm really inspired, really working on some big paintings or whatever, and I just can't get myself to step away from them, I'll maybe work 3 hours in the evening until 9, 10, 11 at night. But sometimes I'll come back 8 or 9, and I'll just watch something on Netflix or whatever, or YouTube, to wind down the night, and I won't do any more. But yes, so like basically the hardest work is happening like in the middle of the day, almost like 10 to 4 in a way.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
So you were saying about working plein air. What kind of percentage is your work plein air? What percentage is studio based?
Yeah, it's almost 100% studio now. I don't really like the plein air stuff. Was great at the beginning, the first 5 or 6 years, to really, like, I was painting every single day outside, doing multiple paintings a day.
Mm-hmm.
And that really trained my eye and my brain to know how natural light works. And I don't know, I painted all sorts of different lighting situations. I traveled a lot. I saw a lot of different areas of the country, and all that kind of just stacked on itself, this mental library. And now I can think back on that when I'm in the studio, and I have I'm always taking reference photos, and I can look at those and kind of look at a photo, but then put it through the filter of what I know of how light actually is, and I can add atmosphere, stuff like that. And I use Photoshop a lot, so I'll take multiple reference photos. I don't know, for example, a cityscape or something. I'll take a car from one photo, put it in another photo to make the composition better, things like that. Or I'll add shapes or change the values.
That's so interesting that in a sense, because I tend to be almost 100% studio painting. I paint landscapes and skies mostly, and I think a lot of it is like you were saying, that after some time you learn to absorb a lot of what you're experiencing, and that actually an artist's memory can become such a powerful thing. The more you tune it, the better it becomes, especially when it comes to things like light and atmosphere. Do you find that as well, that over time your sense of seeing things and your sense of the memory becomes a much more powerful tool, and you can go somewhere and have an experience? You can see a certain landscape, or the way the light hits a tree or the wall, and that almost not freeze in your mind, but become a resource which you can tap into.
Yeah, definitely. That definitely happens, but I do take a lot of reference photos, and I'll kind of look at those to kind of aid the imagination, to kind of aid the memory. So a lot of times people ask, and it's easiest, and it is honest, but it's easiest to just say, oh, I painted this from imagination. So I don't have to like go through and explain how like I'm looking at photos, but I'm changing so much. Like I have like 5 photos showing, or maybe just one, but I'm just taking little bits and pieces and kind of composing them the way, I don't know, in a way it's like I'm composing it in a way where those 9 years of experience has trained me to see compositions and to see light, see color. So I'm looking at that photo just for some information from it. Like, I don't know, say if it's a snow scene, I'm looking, I'm kind of just, I'm seeing like a couple things that are happening in the trees that I like, or maybe a couple like footprints in the snow. And then the rest is the memory aspect of it.
Yeah. And I mean, I love your style because it's so painterly. You've got that painterly approach, and that physicality of paint, of it being something that you, again, fusing that, the image you have, that what you want to paint with a bit of that memory, but also that physical presence of the paint. Have you always painted in an impasto type way?
No. I would say though that I've always been very energetic in my paintings. I've always loved that painterly look. My favorite painters have always been very, very, I don't know, loose, and they just have that painterly look. Painterly is kind of a hard word to define, but it's loose, but it's accurate. I've always liked that look, and I've always been trying to get that in my own paintings. I started out with that same kind of look, the very loose painterly look, but it was very thin and washy, lots of thin washes, and I'd kind of put a wash down and just leave it. And it was good and bad to do that. I would do that and then kind of like fall in love with the way the paint kind of dried on the panel or whatever, and I wouldn't want to touch it, so I left it, and then I do another thin wash next to it, and so on until the painting's done. But lately, the past few years, I've been learning a lot from C.W. Mundy. He's an amazing, super well-established artist from Indiana, and seeing how he works and hearing his thought process, the biggest thing for me, I think, was seeing how thick he works and the way he just corrects things so quickly. He doesn't care how awesome that the passage of paint was underneath. If something has to happen to make the painting better, he'll just correct it, even if it's paint that's half an inch thick. And that was just that. Noticing that at the time in my experience and at the time in my career was just so important, because that's exactly what I need to see, is how important it is to just almost in a way haphazardly putting the paint down to correct things so quickly, just to get to a more I don't know, you don't want to stop until you have the best painting possible. And that was my issue. And not to be so precious about those certain things. If you like something, and you don't want to cover it up, but sometimes it needs covering up. And I guess it is those little breakthrough moments where you see it and it just sort of pushes your work to that next level. Something just sort of clicks and it goes forward. So looking as well with your work, your use of acrylic is very similar to your use of oil. And looking through your Instagram, I often can't tell the difference between the two when you're using them. And that is a real skill to have, because of the drying time, obviously, of the acrylic, especially working in an impasto way. Which medium do you prefer out of oil and acrylic? I like oil. I feel like is I don't know. I always kind of fall back to oil, or I always end up coming back to it. I want to spend a lot of time in it because I just feel like you walk into a museum and that's what everything is, and there's like this big pressure to do an amazing masterpiece in oil, and I just love the challenge of it. The possibilities are so, I don't know, there's a lot of possibilities with gouache, watercolor, acrylic, but then with oil, because of the dry time, you have all those possibilities times 10, I feel like, and all the different mediums, the different surfaces. I just feel like there's the biggest challenge with it, and I think that's why I always kind of want to be experimenting with it. But then when I paint with it for so long, I don't know, it depends on the time in my life. Sometimes I'll paint in oil for a few weeks, or maybe it's a few months, or maybe it's a couple of years. And I eventually get into like these little ruts, and I'm kind of feeling stuck and frustrated with it. I just feel like all my paintings are starting to look very similar. So I'll put oil away, and I'll go back to acrylic or something for a couple weeks. And usually those acrylic paintings are, to me, they're very new and good, and I like them because I'm out of my comfort zone all of a sudden, and I'm going back to basics. Like, I'm just thinking, okay, value, color, edges. And then from there, I'll get sick of that, and I'll go back to oil, and then those paints oil end up being more pure. And I don't know. I don't overthink things anymore. I'm just thinking about making a decent painting, decent image.
I understand that. I mean, I paint in oil and gouache, and what I'll tend to do is similar to you. I get a bit bored of what I'm doing with oil, but it becomes too formulaic, and then step over to gouache for a while. And I find that there's a freshness in a way of approaching using that different medium again after a break that seems to sort of get something going again. And that's normally how I deal with, if I ever get any creative block, is to either switch medium or just try something completely different. Normally sort of takes me away from that. Looking at some of your more abstract works in that sense, but are they still life paintings, or are they abstractions of still life?
So it depends on which one. Some of them, they're completely just messing around, completely just pushing paint in an interesting way over the course of a few weeks. Some of them are scenes that I kind of push the shape, the shapes in the scene kind of over the top, so it's super abstracted. And then some of them I'm experimenting 100%, and then I start to see something in it. So I kind of start to reel it in a little bit, add a little bit of believability to the abstract scene, but I don't want it to become a realistic painting. So I still keep it very abstract, but I bring in like 10% of realism into it, just to kind of finish it off in a way, or finish it off to me at least. But I'm so new to the abstract stuff. It's just it's almost completely just messing around with paint, just wasting paint, just seeing what'll happen. It's fun to have like a 48 by 48 abstract sitting in the corner. It just, I don't know, there's something about it. It changes the mood of the room, and it's almost like having wallpaper or something. I don't know.
Do you find so I was teaching a class workshop this morning, and normally painting landscapes, but every now and then I'll just get everybody to paint an abstract painting, and I'll do a demonstration, and I find it's like a different part of your brain you have to use when you're doing it, because it's more sort of like working out your next move. So put a block of colour here, and then looking at it, okay, what's next? So put that there, and how do I balance that out? How do I contrast this? Do you find, in a sense, in talking about switching mediums or styles, do you find that painting abstract like that is it's a different way of thinking and working, but it's also quite a cathartic exercise as well?
It's weird. Like, I'm so new to it. I'm still trying to figure that out. It is a different type of painting where I do have to kind of switch gears, and like I look at composition design a lot differently in the abstract stuff. The way you can arrange the shapes can be really weird when you think of, like, if you tried to bring that type of shape design into a realistic painting. Or I don't know, for some people, I'm sure it's very natural, but for me, it's like, wow, this opens up a whole bunch of new possibilities with realism. I can put this little shape in the corner down here and it works, like, or I can put this bright white shape right along the edge. Like before, I would always kind of I don't know, you read all these rules and you hear about these things you shouldn't do, and then with abstract, there's ways to make it work. All the, like, no matter what it is, you can make it work. So I'm like, that's kind of what I'm trying to figure out, is like, so how can I get so far out of my comfort zone and learn these things, and then circle back and bring them into my realistic work, and then maybe eventually these abstract stuff will become I don't know, more of what I do, and it'll be, I don't know, maybe what I'm known for, I don't know, but I want to keep that open. I don't want to be like just stuck in my ways with one type of painting. I want to just try everything.
And I think they feed, and seeing the one behind you there, the one on the easel, the cityscapes that you've been doing recently. Those kind of abstract elements come into those, and it's interesting to see that crossover, that sort of cross-pollination of it working together. So your city ones, are they from New York?
Some of them are. The most recent ones are from California, from some time I spent in LA about a month ago.
Right. Well, then. Yeah, I love the sense of flux and movement in them. And again, it's that painterly language that you can create, that things have just got that slight sense of movement, of slightly being unresolved in a way, that the scene could change any minute.
Yeah, it's cool. It was fun for me to try those, because you nailed it right there with the movement. That's a big part of how I paint. So I wanted to have that in the painting, but I also wanted to have some of my the abstract qualities I've been learning. I wanted to bring those in. So I had some more flatter, simple shapes of just flat color, flat value. And those can be in kind of odd areas of the painting. But that kind of mixed with that extreme movement was kind of a pretty cool look that I didn't really know. I wouldn't have known if I didn't take that trip out there and I didn't take a bunch of photos and then bring back. That kind of it kind of happened on its own, just intuitively, because of how I've been painting here and how I've been experimenting with the abstract stuff. It kind of just all came together into these. So yeah, it was a cool little experiment. I did like 4 or 5 of them. I want to do more, but.
Well, does your digital background help inform the way that you add texture to paintings? Because surely with you having a background in digital painting, you've used texture brushes and have the ability to do layering and different opacities. Is that something which you've kind of taken over, or you still go from one to the other, where you think, I'm going to try out this experimentation on the computer first? Is that something you've ever done? Or
yeah, I will, if I've got a pretty extreme idea for a painting, for an oil painting or whatever type of painting, a traditional painting, if I like the painting and then I get that big idea, and then I don't really want to take that huge risk. I don't know. It's tough saying that, because I always want to take a risk, but it's so easy for me to just like, here's my easel, and then here's my computer. So I'll come over here really quick and just try it in Photoshop. And then when I do that, I'm like, okay, well, what happens if I do this? And what happens if I do this? I'll make new layers. And then once I like something, I don't know, 90% of the time, I'll just use that as the new reference and change the actual painting. But other times because it's so fresh, I'll do that idea and I'll like it, but then I usually have to, I don't know, I'll send it to my brother I'll send it to CW, or I've got a couple other groups of painters that I'll send images to and just say, okay, what do you think of this? Is this, am I just in love with it because it's new, or do you think I should make these changes? So yeah, that's always just another tool that I have that's available, and I'm open to using it whenever possible. But yeah, like the big thing I think for me with Photoshop lately is using it to create, like I'll find an image online, or I'll find one of my reference photos, and then I'll mess with it in Photoshop until it starts to look like a painting. I'll mess with edges or change values or whatever, and I'll turn it into my own reference, and then I'll paint it. That I think is some of the biggest, or one of the biggest helps to me, is being able to do that.
Has there ever been a crossover point as well? Because I don't know if you've heard that James Gurney has spoken about how he did background paintings for Fire and Ice, for Ralph Bakshi film Fire and Ice. And has that ever happened with your brother? Have you ever been, commissioned to? No, you've never.
No, I'm open to it. I would do something in that industry at some point, but it would have to be like, I'm lucky to have Zach, my brother, in that industry, and he's got his own studio now, and he's taking on or his studio is taking on jobs, and so he could potentially hire me at some point to do something. And I'm very fortunate for that, because I know him and I know myself, and I know he would only want to hire me for something if he knew it would be completely enjoyable for me to do. Because I've got a lot of friends in that entertainment industry, that animation world, and I hear all the stories and the bad parts of the industry and everything, and it's hard for me to want to enter into that when I hear all that, because I have like the ultimate freedom here in my studio with being able to do what I want. But I'm open to it if the opportunity was right, and it could be really enjoyable. Like the idea came up one time for if Zach wanted me to do some like initial paintings, sketches for just like an idea for a scene, or like a sequence of scenes, just kind of doing these quick little
kind of concept parts.
Yeah, like very quick concepts. That would be fun, where it's just kind of very open and very free. That would be fun to do, and it'd be fun to do them in oil or something, and kind of bring that look, and then they could take photos of them and crop them differently or whatever, stretch and pull things in Photoshop.
Yeah, it opens it up to potential, archival work being exhibited for, after the success of a film or whatever the animated work is. Things like that are so precious to have physical copies of things. So I was just curious, because I do work with my brother. My older brother he does a lot of mural artwork, and then when he promotes it, he gets me to do the editing, because he knows that that's the side of it that I can do quite easily and happily, and it can complement each other, because you have a rhythm with your family where this is what they're after, and this is what their tastes are, and their sensibilities lean in this direction. So it'd be curious to see if that ever goes in that direction, because it's kind of exciting to kind of test yourself in those ways sometimes.
Yeah.
So I can see behind you, Tad, and I was looking. It's a painting you've done of a boat, a ship, and I think a sailing boat, and I can see it behind you.
Right here.
Yeah. So that's it. Yes, yeah. And it's so interesting looking at it, because it looks like it could have been painted, 100, 150 years ago. It's got this lovely kind of traditional marine art style, but it's got this lovely contemporary, fresh use of paint as well. I do see that in your work, that you're able to bring, sort of have this conversation with art history in a way. And how important is art history to your process? I mean, who are you influenced by? Any schools, any favorite artists?
I'm inspired by a lot of art. Like most recently, I it's cool that you noticed that, because I'm definitely after that old look, that like when a painting appears to be very old, or it has that timeless look in a way. I really like that. And I feel like what it comes down to for me is kind of having a painting that looks a little dirty, a little like it's been sitting around for a while, and to be able to do that with paint, I don't know. I don't really know like a clear way to describe how to do it, but like I've been experimenting with glazing a little bit, and kind of not really glazing very for like a specific reason, but just glazing over something to make it look dirty, make it look old, and then working on top of that. Like I don't do that on all of them, but experimenting with that has opened up some possibilities, because I learned like I was never really into glazing before, and all of a sudden doing that, it's like, okay, wow, this opens up some new possibilities. I could start glazing over this light section on this painting and let it sit a couple days and then come back to it, and then I get this effect. But then the rest of the painting is left unglazed. So you can, I don't know, again, it comes back to just being open to so many different ways of painting. But yeah, like my influences, it's hard. Like I don't really think of individual artists anymore. I mostly think about like my experience going to museums, and just kind of that feeling you get when you're in there, feeling you get looking at paintings in general. I don't think about like a specific artist in that museum. How did they get that look, and how can I emulate that? Now it's more just painting very intuitively, and trying not to overthink things. Because if I come in here and I have all these ideas and these kind of like lay out these plans for these paintings, it gets really overwhelming, and it starts to become less fun. If I can come in here and just start throwing paint around, and just kind of be really almost careless, it's like borderline careless, but there's a little bit of or there's a lot of like experience that has led up to throwing that paint around in a way that it ends up turning into something. When I just kind of turn my mind off, and just let the muscle memory do the work, and that's, I feel like, when the best painting happens.
You're sort of in that flow state, in that sense, and not overthinking it. And like you say there, it's, I liked how you described sort of just the feel of going to a museum, a gallery, where you're absorbing it, like we were saying earlier about light and landscape and stuff. You kind of absorb these things, and even though we're not consciously thinking of it when we're painting in this linear way, this is what I want to create, it's nonetheless there, sort of in the back of our minds as we're experimenting and creating. And it's fascinating you saying about experimenting with glazing, because it's something I sometimes experiment with, but because I tended to work alla prima and quite impasto, I thought, well, you can't then go and glaze over the top. But I saw an artist that was doing it and sort of putting the glaze on and then really kind of rubbing it into the surface, so you don't have that real danger of cracking. And the effects of it are absolutely amazing. And then again, it's just those experiments that you try out, and that sort of incorporates into your practice. And it's a fascinating thing, paint.
Yeah. I don't really think about long term. Like I don't do like dumb things with the paint that I know will have bad effects in, I don't know, 50 years or 100 years or whatever, 200 years. But like I don't overthink that stuff. Like if I want to try something and it may or may not shorten the life of the painting, I'll go for it. I don't know. I don't know. I feel like the materials we use now are so good compared to what has been used in the hundreds of years in the past. Like they're so good. What we do now is it's gonna like the quality is gonna hold up a substantial amount of time. I feel like we can do things now with the paints that has never really been done before, or has been done in the past but hasn't worked out as well because of the quality that they had back in the day. And so I'm very confident in the materials and thinking, okay, I'm gonna try this. It may or may not be frowned upon, but I'm gonna do this, and I mean it'll last a lifetime, and for whoever ends up buying it, it'll last their lifetime. And I don't know, I can't, it's too much. I don't know, I can only think about so much when I'm painting, and if I'm thinking about 2, 3, 4 generations from now, how is this painting going to look to them? Like I can't be bothered with that.
No,
Lately, I've been doing a lot of plein air painting, and I've been trying to make use of the weather because we've been having quite fortunate weather over here. So a lot of that I've been trying to break through to this point of, like you were saying, with natural light, and trying to actually have an understanding of how to go quite tertiary with all of the colors, because if it's too vibrant, what you're using, it's not really going to reflect the reality that you're really captured by. And I found that leaving till the very last certain cutting in colors that are really going to make it pop and then shape other things that are left quite splodgy and abstract has really shaped things well and rescued them in that last stage. Is there anything from your experience of doing a lot of plein air painting where you think this is really something which comes out of it, as far as this earned knowledge of being out there in the field doing this work?
Yeah, like to me, I feel like the biggest thing with plein air painting is not getting too attached to the paintings you're doing out there, because you have so many you have so much reflected light affecting your painting. You have bugs, wind, all this stuff kind of bothering you while you're out there.
Yeah.
But the fact that you're looking at the scene and making decisions, noticing things, and looking at your canvas and kind of making a lot of comparisons, I feel like that does more in your mind and with your eye, building up kind of that little library of information. That is the biggest thing you can take away from plein air painting, as opposed to having hundreds of these plein air paintings that you look back at and think of that as your library of so many years of work out in the field. It's best to think about that work as affecting your eye and how you see things, and how you're able to I don't know, how you're able to compose and things like that. I don't know. I think that has at least been the case with me. When I first started, I went to California for a while and painted every day. I was doing like three paintings outside every day, and so I was there for 6 months, and I did that every day. And at the end of that, every single painting, I don't know, there was maybe 5 in there that were decent, but there's hundreds of paintings in there, and they were all just so bad. But like having that experience out there and being able to get those hundreds of bad paintings out of the way. I tell the story to anyone when I get the chance. Like, it's just so important to just get those bad paintings, get them out of the way, and then in your mind you're able to move on, and slowly get better and better. But you just have to commit to doing these bad paintings for years, really. So, and I think it also helped with me. I was in a new place and I was doing these bad paintings. I was trying really hard, but I was so new to painting it. They just ended up bad. So at the end of that, I moved back to New York, where I grew up and where my family is and everything. And so coming back here, I was like, okay, start of a new chapter. I got those 300 bad paintings out of the way. Now I'm gonna start fresh, try again. And from that minute, the work was substantially better. It was still pretty bad, but I felt like I like progressed to the next level in a way.
Yeah, I think it's time I feel like I'm making more informed choices every time I go out because of a previous time where I struggled. And you just subconsciously record that, and you know that it's at the back of your mind thinking that I didn't achieve that and I couldn't reach that at that point. So next time you push a little bit harder. But I'm wondering as well, going from California to New York, did you change your palette, or do you have a specific set palette that you use to paint?
Well, back then I was so new to it. I probably had 10, 12 colors on my palette in California, because I thought that's what had to be done. I was doing little watercolor paintings, but then I also had white gouache in there. So I would do those like really quick. I had sketchbooks that I would I would do a bunch of those every day. And then I also was doing little tiny oil paintings out there on location, out on the streets. And but yeah, I had way too many colors on my palette. Most of them were just unnecessary. And then coming back here, I think I still had too many colors out. It wasn't until probably a couple of years later where I was just like, okay, it's just not necessary. I'm just going to have a deep blue, a really warm medium red, and then a really saturated, warm, deep yellow and white. And I really haven't gone back, have not gone back since that. Those three colors, or four colors, three and white or whatever, are really all you need. Every once in a while I'll bring in black, or I'll squeeze out a different blue or a purple just to see what'll happen. But I wouldn't suggest doing that in those first couple of years of painting, until you kind of develop a strong natural color sense, because it just kind of confuses you. I would have been much better off starting out just using blue, red, yellow, and white, because you learn about gray, which is very important. You learn about that very quick, because you have to mix everything from those. You think, okay, I can mix blue and red, I can mix blue and yellow, yellow and red, yellow and blue. You've only got so many options, and then you just learn to make those subtle ratio changes.
And you find out about, I tend to, and when I teach as well, just three colors plus white. And you find your limitations quite quickly, or the more you learn how to do it. So certain sea greens or turquoises, for example, you realise that ultramarine blue and a bit of cadmium yellow isn't going to get you there. Maybe you need some cerulean or some phthalo blue or something like that. But at least if you're starting with that very basic primary limited palette, you get to know the sort of the limitations of these things. And like you, I started out, I remember going to an art store and seeing these old Holland paints and just being fascinated by every colour. I'm thinking, I've got to buy every colour, but it's going to take me a long time to buy one. And just having this obscene amount of colours on my palette, and some of them not even being touched at all. But then just going back to that basic 3 colours plus white, and then sort of learning, and then trying out different combinations of that. So rather than ultramarine blue, cadmium yellow, and say quinacridone magenta, I'd swap it for maybe like a Payne's grey, a yellow ochre, and a burnt sienna, and just constantly switching around those 3 primary colours and just seeing what you could get. It's a great way to learn. Being limiting yourself like that, I think colour knowledge just expands exponentially once you get the hang of it. You kind of know how to cool things down, and how to get those greys, how to work with the complementaries.
Yeah.
That and the opacity box at the back of the painting is one which I think is always something which I seem to overlook. And then when I paint, I think, this is now, it's just see-through. I just need to do so many layers and always have to mix it with others to strengthen it. But what is it that do you mind me asking the specifics as far as a deep blue? Is it ultramarine, or is it, Prussian blue?
It's either one or the other, Prussian blue or ultramarine. I got Prussian blue right here. I love this one because it's pretty saturated. You can get some pretty intense blues with it, but it's also very dark. So I don't really need black. Really, when I have this, I can mix this with red and get a warm enough dark for my taste, at least, where it appears to be dark enough and the values seem good enough. So I love that about it. But every once in a while I will use ultramarine blue instead and do the same thing. It ends up being slightly lighter. The darkest darks tend to be slightly lighter, but depending on the painting, that usually doesn't bother me too much. But it is a little less saturated, so you can't, like for example, in the sky, if I'm mixing a sky and I'm using ultramarine as opposed to Prussian, I typically can't get as like a deep, I don't know, I guess that's the right word, like a deep saturated blue sky. I don't really go super blue ever, but I feel like I just can get more of an accurate sky color with Prussian blue. So that's kind of been my blue of choice. And then let's see here. I say I use these 3 colors, but I've got like a giant pile of random colors here. I don't know. I've been doing, like we were talking about the abstract stuff, so I'll like squeeze out a random color just to see what happens.
Nice.
So naphthol red is a good red. I thought it was naphthol red deep or medium, but I guess I've just been using naphthol red, which seems to be deep enough. With red, I say deep because I want it dark and saturated. Otherwise I can't get those like nice warm blacks, basically.
Yeah.
And what's the opacity like on that, Tad? Is it opaque like a cadmium, but naphthol, or just somewhere a little bit semi-opaque?
Let's see what it says. It says semi-transparent. I don't know. For me, I'm not super into the like the specifics with paints. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, I'll just lay it on thicker if it's not doing what I want.
Yeah.
But I don't think, like, there's definitely like it doesn't have the body and the opacity that some other reds do. But like I buy like like 5 to 10 tubes at a time. And once I go through it, I'll try like another slightly different brand. Like right now I'm on these 1980s by Gambling, but I might switch over to I don't know, like the actual, like the higher end. Like there is a slight difference, but usually to me there's not enough of a difference to eliminate one or the other. I don't know. I just kind of lay the paint on differently if it's not reacting the way I want it to.
And then, it does the job. It does the job.
Yeah. If it's not doing the job, it's rare that a paint usually isn't. But if it's not, then I'll just go over to my pile of paint and grab the right one and correct the issue. Or even better, I'll notice what it's doing and I'll just adapt to that, and maybe the painting ends up being slightly higher key, or maybe it ends up looking a little chalky, which that word kind of gets tossed around sometimes, and it's kind of a negative word, but I don't know, for high key stuff or in the right painting, if you adapt the whole painting to a certain
absolutely
look or feel, it can work fine.
So are you using palette?
Well, what one's that? So that's Hansa Yellow Medium.
Oh,
nice and fresh.
Yep. So that one, again, it's like I have a lot of saturation to work with.
Yes,
that's great.
Actually, it doesn't even look too saturated there, but it's a saturated. I don't know. I'd say it's just a very medium saturated yellow. It's not too light.
Process yellow type of thing.
Yeah. It's very clean as well. In your mixes, you're going to get clean mixes. So, quick one, just very quickly. Simon, I've got to go in about 5 minutes. But Tad, are you using palette knives mainly, or combination?
Definitely a combination. I'm using the palette knives a lot. I'd probably say 75% of the time, but then I kind of, whatever I feel like getting, like I've got a bunch of random. So like this one's I don't know. It's like a bristle brush. This is a synthetic. It's got like a squared off end. This one's more of a flat, and that one's a synthetic. So I kind of buy what's on sale. I buy what I got a bunch of these like little liners that I get. So like brushes, to me, like I can kind of just make do with whatever I have, and like I can get an edge, a really sharp edge if I need to, with the palette knife. So I can kind of have some messy brushes that haven't been cleaned in 3 months and do the rest with palette knives. And I use the squeegee things too.
What are those catalyst wedge things?
Exactly.
As well. Wow.
Yeah, I use the rollers a little bit, not so much lately, but I've got it here just in case. I got some fan brushes.
So with your palette knives, I paint with palette knife predominantly. Are you using just one? Because I like the same shape. It's like a sort of a teardrop shape, and I find
I have a few that I kind of go between. This one is pretty small. I don't know if you can see that. That one's a little bit bigger and rounded off. And then this is the other one that I typically use. It's my biggest one. This one I don't use too much anymore. It kind of got a little bent, the tip of it, so I kind of swapped that one for this one. And these two were passed down to me from I think my grandpa or great grandpa. They've just kind of been what I have, so I've just kind of adapted to using them. And then this one I bought I don't know, 6 months ago. It's just a cheap one from, it might even be like the Blick brand. But it works enough, and it's cheap where if I snap it, I'll just get another one. I don't have to worry too much about it.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I find it interesting with palette knives as well that I've got used to, is it RGM one, like a teardrop shape, I can't remember the number, but I've got about 10, 15 of the same one around.
Yeah.
But they used to make them in Italy, and then they moved the manufacture to China, and the handle was just slightly up a little bit, and it took me ages to adapt to using it again, even though it's the same shape. It was because I just got so used to having it at a certain angle. Do you find with your palette knives, with your tools there, you know, like you were saying, you've got those inherited ones, that they're your trusty ones, that you can do most with those?
Yeah, like you definitely become really used to whatever you have. So I've been using those for years now, and I've used them so much, I know exactly, I don't have to think about them. I know what's going to happen when I'm using it. And so it's going to be a bummer when one breaks or I lose one or something. But it's just what happens. It might even be best that I break one or lose one, because I might get something that ends up changing my whole approach.
Yeah, you have to adapt.
Yep.
Okay, I'd just like to say thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast. I do like to ask at the end, what social media would you like the viewers to go and look at to support you and to see your work?
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. It's been fun talking. The best social media is probably my Instagram, and it's just my name, TADRETZ, Tad Retz.
And then I'll leave links in the description for your link tree as well. Do you have any exhibitions coming up that you'd, because you've just done a couple of exhibitions, haven't you? Just done one recently.
I just went to California. I had a show, or it wasn't a solo show, it was a group show at a new gallery in I'm forgetting the town, but just outside of LA, at a gallery called the Baldwin Avenue Gallery, and it was curated by William Ray, really awesome abstract painter. So I had a couple paintings in that, and it's still up for a couple more weeks. And then coming up, opening in about a week and a half, I think, is a solo show in Maine at my gallery, my first gallery actually that I joined. It's Camden Falls Gallery in Camden, Maine. I've got, I don't know, 12 to 15 new paintings that I just shipped. I thought I was going to drive them up there, but I ended up shipping them. Save some time.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much.
Best of luck.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's great to meet you too.
Great talking to you.
Great to meet you guys.